Your tongue, man.
I mean, I'm actually a nice person.
You know, I started off in Brooklyn. My father gave me a small loan of $1 million.
No shit, man. Don't bullshit me. Bullshit. Bullshit.
We need to build a wall, and it has to be built quickly. I will be the greatest jobs president that God ever created. I tell you that.
A lot of us are really smart. I'm really smart. Went to the Wharton School of Finance. Even then, a long time ago, like the hardest or one of the hardest schools to get into. Did well at the school. Came out, made a fortune.
Hey, I'm not saying they're stupid. I like China. I just sold an apartment for $15 million to somebody from China.
No shit.
Am I supposed
Don't
to
bullshit.
dislike?
Bullshit. Bullshit.
That was the biggest load of crap I've ever heard.
Until Election Day, and only one day left before the third and final debate between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. But before they square off in Las Vegas, Trump teeing off in the latest developments in the Clinton email controversy. As we say good morning, 6 o'clock here in Las Vegas. I'm Bill Hemmer. Welcome to America's Newsroom. We're high on top of the MGM Grand. Great
Kind of like it up
How you
here.
doing, right?
You like it up here?
So far, I mean, yesterday at this time, we had a slight tropical storm rolling here.
Yeah, we're crossing our fingers that that's not going to happen this morning. But welcome, everybody. I'm
Beautiful
Martha
morning.
McCallum. It is a beautiful morning in Las Vegas, Nevada, as we watch the sun come up about a half an hour from now. Boy, what a day it is for these two. They've got 24 hours left before the biggest remaining moment in this process towards Election Day 2016. Hillary Clinton, we understand, is hunkered down again today. That's what she likes to do. She has done that in the previous debates, just sort of focused and gotten ready on her own in private. Meanwhile, Donald Trump does what he loves to do, and that's get out there in front of a crowd, rallying supporters last night in Battleground, Wisconsin.
So Trump, part of his line attacking Clinton after newly released FBI documents reveal allegations of quid pro quo at the State Department, comparing it to one of the most infamous scandals in U.S. political history.
So Clinton and her cronies have sacrificed your security, your family's safety, and your country's safety as though it meant nothing to her at all, which it didn't. This magnitude's worse, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many people in law enforcement. This is worse than Watergate, what's going on with this. And what does she get out of it? She gets to run for the presidency of the United States. Explain that. Explain it.
All right, let's go to senior national correspondent John Roberts, who is live in Las Vegas with more on this. Good morning to you, John.
Martha, good morning to you. You know, Donald Trump has been anxious to change the subject going into tomorrow night's debate, and he may have just found an issue that he can capitalize on. This idea that there was a quid pro quo offered between the State Department and the FBI to change the classification on some of Hillary Clinton's emails. Donald Trump seized upon that information last night at his rally in Green Bay, Wisconsin, calling for Patrick Kennedy's resignation. Listen to this.
The FBI documents that show Undersecretary of State Patrick Kennedy made the request for altering classification as part of a quid pro quo. In other words, a deal. This is felony corruption by any standard. Undersecretary Kennedy needs to resign.
But tomorrow night's debate, what Donald Trump needs to do in order to get to policy is clear the decks of all of the allegations that have been leveled against him from these 9 women over the last week or so. In debate preparation, he's been working on an answer to try to put that to the side so that he can get in on some of the deeper issues. And yesterday, his campaign put out Melania Trump for her first public appearances since her appearance at the Republican National Convention back in July. She did 2 interviews, one of them with our Ainsley Earhart. Melania talked to her about the allegations leveled by these women and the infamous hot mic incident. Listen to this.
All the allegations should be handled in a court of law and without the evidence. To accuse somebody, is a man or a woman, it's damaging and it's unfair. Those words, they were offensive to me and they were inappropriate. I accept his apology and we are moving on.
We are moving on, she says, and she hopes that voters will as well. A lot of people see Donald Trump's last chance to turn the poll numbers around being tomorrow night's debate. If he doesn't do it, he could be headed for a bad election night.
Yep.
Martha?
All right. A lot at stake. John, thank you very much.
As we mentioned, terrific show ahead for you this morning. I want to start with analysis today. Byron York, chief political correspondent for the Washington Examiner. He is screen right, Fox News contributor, and Washington Times columnist Charlie Hurt, screen left. Actually, it's stage left. Screen right. How you doing, Charlie? Good morning to you. You're 36 hours away from the final debate. You're 21 days away from the election. Early voting is already underway in several battleground states. What do you believe is the state of the race today, Charlie?
Well, I think it's a lot closer right now than you would have thought it would be, considering the amount of incoming that Donald Trump has had. Some of it self-inflicted. I think a lot of it was unfair, but whatever. He has endured 2 or 3 weeks of just unimaginably bad press. He was in Wisconsin last night. You know, most people would sort of, that's not the swingiest of swing states anymore. But, you know, he's at about, the average of the polls, he's at about 7%, which is down 7%, which is about where Mitt Romney was at the end of the election. So he's still in this. And I agree with what you just said, or what John Roberts just said, that, you know, when it comes, I think this debate is going to be pivotal. I think this debate could decide this election.
Byron, you watch Melania there. She speaks very well, I think, for her family and for her husband. She takes the high road. And that is something that we haven't seen as much of from her husband. And I wonder if that might be the one posture that could help him expand his voters tomorrow night.
Well, somebody's got to take the high road in the Trump campaign.
Yes,
and
wouldn't that be nice?
She's going to do it. Now, you know, John Roberts said Trump has to find a way to kind of put all these allegations off the table. I'm not sure there is such a way to do that. Hillary Clinton's not going to want to let him do that. So he's going to have to come up with one heck of an answer. One other thing about the polls now. If you average all the national polls together, Hillary Clinton's lead is now 7 points. Barack Obama won by 3.9 points over Mitt Romney in 2012. That 3.9 point lead translated into 332 electoral votes to Romney's 206. So Trump has an enormous amount of ground to make up in 21 days.
In the past 24 hours, CBS has Clinton up 9. Monmouth poll has Clinton up 12. There's an NBC poll that came out earlier today where the margin of difference at the moment, there's CBS, Monmouth Rural next, and NBC had the difference at 8 points. To both of you, when Trump talks about a rigged election, what do you believe the effect of that is, if at all, when I know the argument you make? You believe that's his get out the vote.
It's his get out the vote, yeah.
Right? What do you think it is, Charlie?
I agree. It definitely is that. But, you know, there's a lot of hand-wringing in the media about the fact that he keeps using this term, and I get that. But what's kind of terrifying, or what I think is important about it, is the fact that there are millions and millions and millions of Americans who believe that, and believe that the system or whatever is rigged against them.
The media.
And the media, and you know, everything from global trade to illegal immigration to other economic issues. They feel like the system is rigged against them, and he's speaking for them. And going after Donald Trump for captivating that audience, I think is kind of not as important as figuring out, well, you know, gee, what's wrong? What's going on wrong here?
Yeah. You know, it seems to me that he has an opportunity tomorrow night to basically say, if you want everything to stay like this, right, if you want 4 more years, and I think so many of these stories get muddied, the quid pro quo, the WikiLeaks, but people do understand the larger picture, which is that there's, you know, sort of a pact in Washington and the media and corporate America that has allowed this to fester, and that the only way to change it would be to change it. And if this is a change election, perhaps the person who's leading it, maybe for that side of the equation, has to become less important than the overall motivation.
This is the opportunity he's had all along,
right,
to portray himself as the change agent, and he hasn't actually done it yet. The one thing about the email scandals and the drip of information and this alleged quid pro quo, you're right, it's very Clinton-esque, and it's like, do you want more of this stuff? I mean, as a matter of fact, one of Trump's better commercials about a month ago just had a fleeting picture of Bill and Hillary Clinton in that 1992 60 Minutes interview, and basically it's, do you want to go back to all this? Trump has not effectively made that argument, but it is a real effective argument to make, because remember, a lot of people a while back when Jeb Bush was a power, they said, you know, are we going to go with the third Bush or the second Clinton? Well, the Bush thing isn't happening, but the second Clinton is right there on the horizon, and this is his chance to make that argument.
One more point in this conversation. If you look at that Wall Street Journal polling, voter turnout could be as low as we have seen in perhaps 3 election cycles. They're talking about African Americans are less interested, young voters are less interested. We talked about that a lot. You're down 4 points from just 4 years ago. In a battleground state, if you are within the margin of error, 4 points can make a huge difference.
Oh, absolutely. And, it's been a very ugly election, obviously. And, neither, all of the WikiLeaks stuff that's come out for Hillary Clinton actually managed or rather the stuff going on with Donald Trump managed to actually get his unfavorables among his own supporters down to the sort of level with Hillary Clinton at one point. And that, I think, is a pretty good picture of just how kind of unpleasant the political debate has been this year.
Do you both believe that voter turnout will be lower than we have seen?
It could very well. Hillary Clinton's job has always been to try to reassemble the Obama coalition, minorities, women, young people. She's certainly done it with women, but we've seen a lot of stories about how minority voters are not as excited about her as they were about Barack Obama. She'll probably be under him in terms of turnout and percentage. So if she has a problem as far as turnout is concerned, that's it.
Thank you, Byron. Thank you, Charlie.
Sure. Thank you.
Back to the slot machines, you men go. Quickly.
So remember, Fox News has you covered leading up to this big debate tomorrow night. What an important moment this is. And you don't know what's going to happen. That's what we learned in this process, right? So for the first time ever, a Fox News journalist will be moderating that debate. The honor goes to our own Fox News Sunday anchor, Chris Wallace. The final debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton set for tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern, live from the campus of the University of Nevada in Las Vegas.
Looking forward to that. In the meantime, as these two get ready to battle it out, some new polls show a very tight race in some of the more critical battleground states.
Those polls were great today, but they're also showing there's like an undercurrent that they can't poll. Remember when I was in the primaries? How's he doing on such and such? Well, it looks like he won't win that state. Then the next day, it's like, you win in a landslide. They say, what happened? Now, we'll take it anyway. I mean, this is, I guess, like people don't want to say they're voting for Trump, which is okay. We'll take it any way we get it. Do you agree?
So Trump making the case the momentum is still on his side. I want to bring in Karl Rove right now, former White House Deputy Chief of Staff to George Bush. And Karl, good morning to you. Some viewers are hitting us on Twitter about asking for the Hillary Clinton comments. I don't believe she made a public statement yesterday, so she is well in the mode of debate prep. Get to that in a moment. First, I think what Trump is referring to there are voters who don't show up in the polling. Do you believe there is some truth to that or not?
I believe there may be a little bit of truth to it, but not a lot. I think that if you look at the whole range of polling that has been done, the last 4 weeks essentially have not been good for him. And he has dropped on the ballot. His favorables have dropped. And most important of all, his enthusiasm level among his supporters has dropped. She now has, generally in virtually every poll, more enthusiastic followers than he does. So, look, this is the kind of thing that you say as you're coming down the pike trying to keep your team together. But I wouldn't make my appeal based on that. I think he was on firmer ground when he went after Patrick Kennedy last night and tattooed him for quid pro quo with the FBI.
Now, we just played a bit of that. Battleground states quickly now. In Ohio, Quinnipiac has them even, 45-45. Margin of error is almost 4 points there. In Florida, Quinnipiac has Clinton up 2. Margin of error still applies. North Carolina, CNN has Clinton up a point. Margin of error there as well. As you look at the battleground states and how close they are, typically with 21 days to play, let's say, what is the factor that causes it to break one side or the other? Is it about tomorrow night, or is it more than that?
Well, it's about more than tomorrow night. I've made the point that it's not just what happens on debate night, it's what happens in between, before, and after debate nights. For example, the first debate, I think everyone acknowledges Trump had a bad night. What did he do? He spent the next 5 days attacking a former Miss Universe. He had a better debate the second day, the second debate. What did he spend the next 5 days doing? Picking a fight with Republicans. He wasted the periods in between the debates, even when he did reasonably well at a debate, and even when he did badly at a debate. You mentioned those battleground polls. If you take a look at the Real Clear Politics average, they tend to those polls tend to fall in line with the national average. You said Ohio, he's ahead. He's ahead in Ohio in the Real Clear Politics average. Those other states, he's behind, though not by much. But remember this, he carries all the states you talked about. He carries Nevada, where he's slightly behind, North Carolina, Ohio, and Florida. That only gets him to 253 should be 259 electoral votes. There's only one other state in the Real Clear Politics average where he's leading. That's Iowa. That gets him to 265. So even if he takes these three states, Ohio, North Carolina, and Nevada, that he's behind today, wins the two states where he is slightly ahead, he still is short of 270, and not a single other state in the Real Clear Politics average is at or below the national average of 7 points.
Well, he has to thread that, and we'll see what happens then.
He has to, yeah.
But before we get there, what is your expectation for tomorrow night?
Well, first of all, I think this is going to be the most substantive debate, because we're going to have Chris Wallace asking questions. Oh, yeah, look, first of all, it's going to be the format is going to be Wallace asking questions. He's not a gotcha kind of guy. He has signaled that it's going to be substantive, and we're going to get a chance for each one of these people, if their mind is in the right place, to score points on their behalf. If Donald Trump's mindset is, I've got to demonstrate that I'm the candidate of change, as Martha said earlier, the more he shows that he's the candidate of change, here's constructive change that I want to have, and here's why I'm different from the status quo, he can score points. On the other hand, if she demonstrates both the temperament to be president and demonstrates the willingness to accept some change, she can advance her cause and slightly undermine his. But again, we got to look at tomorrow night in the context of what is coming and what follows. And I think yesterday was an important lesson for Trump. For the first time in the last 3 weeks, he took an event of the day, the release of the Patrick Kennedy emails and exchange, and introduced it, made it an issue. Now he needs to broaden it. Here's the interesting thing. He can broaden it today and in the days ahead by saying, you know, Patrick Kennedy was not only trying to get a quid pro quo with the FBI in order to tilt the investigation in her favor. Remember, Patrick Kennedy is her man who refuses the security upgrades from Benghazi that led to the disaster in Benghazi. This is her fixer. We can't let her and her people be in office.
I'm out of time. Thanks. Wallace is in an undisclosed location. He's sequestered somewhere. We haven't heard from the man. But tomorrow night, main stage. Carl, thank you for your analysis. Carl, we're over there in Austin.
You bet.
Thanks, Martha.
And the WikiLeaks spigot has been turned back on. There's more emails that are pouring out this morning from the account of the Clinton campaign chairman, John Podesta. We're going to show you what is in those. Ed Henry going through them as we speak. Some stunning information in there that has now been made public, how it may affect the race.
The United States strongly condemns the illegal disclosure of classified information.
It was 6 years ago next month when a titanic clash started between one of the most powerful women in the world, Hillary Clinton, and a man who was the previously little-known founder of WikiLeaks, Julian Assange. He rattled the American Secretary of State in November of 2010 by leaking out 250,000 classified diplomatic cables. And now Assange may be threatening no less than Clinton's path to the Oval Office from the most unlikely of places, Assange's tiny bedroom at the Ecuadorian embassy in London.
What a story this has been. The WikiLeaks bombshells keep coming. This morning we've got the latest batch of the hacked emails just out. It includes messages about Benghazi and how much support Hillary Clinton should show for Israel. Ed Henry's been going through them. He joins us now live from Washington. So, Ed, good morning to you. So what's in this latest batch?
Well, round 11 of the John Podesta emails literally coming out in the last half hour or so. Give you a quick update on some headlines. One about Benghazi you mentioned. We see an email exchange among John Podesta, other top aides, where Hillary Clinton was being coached on, in their words, how to stir up some moral outrage against Republicans at this Benghazi hearing several months ago, saying in part, use the line about how they're gaining politically off, quote, the backs of 4 dead Americans. Of course, that was a line she read at that hearing. You remember that well. The other thing is about Israel, one that just came out that suggests that early on, as her campaign began, early 2015, her aides were debating whether or not to say she was a strong ally of Israel in her opening stump speech in those early days. And several top aides squashed that and said, no, that's going to upset the left and Democratic activists if you look too strong for Israel. That's going to raise some eyebrows in the Mideast and here in Washington, obviously, but also gets at really what's the bottom line question here. As we sort out for our viewers these thousands and thousands of emails, more than 10,000 John Podesta emails now, which is that you're seeing 2 different Hillary Clintons. You're seeing one in public on Israel, for example, saying now, strong ally of Israel, be there for Israel, do whatever I can in her speeches. And then in private, they're saying, well, wait a second, let's not be too strong of an ally publicly. That's going to hurt us with the left. And we've seen that again and again when the Wall Street transcripts come out, for example, finally, in these email dumps, something that she resisted from Bernie Sanders. Why did she do that? Well, because when she was talking to Goldman Sachs for hundreds of thousands of dollars a speech, she was saying, oh, you know, you just need a public and a private position on issues like trade. You tell the public one thing, but in private you have a totally different position in order to negotiate. She also sort of downplayed her support for Wall Street reform, saying, yeah, we had to do Dodd-Frank for political reasons. It wasn't really about the substance. And finally, telling these Wall Street bankers that were paying her big money for a speech, you know what? I don't know why in this country Hillary Clinton said there's such a bias against successful people like you who've made so much money on Wall Street. Well, that's the opposite of what she said in the first 2 general election debates now against Donald Trump, going after him for being rich in his business ties. So as Karl Rove was just saying, can Trump in this final debate there tomorrow night prosecute that very case about these 2 different Hillary Clintons?
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to Bill Clinton, too, and triangulation, you know, where you sort of try to figure out a way to say the right thing to this side, the right thing to that side, and really not give either side what they want. Now, some people might just say, look, that's just politics. But Donald Trump does have an opportunity here to remind people of this very long pattern that exists.
You're right, Martha, because yes, it's politics. It's politics as usual. And Donald Trump's whole appeal has been blow everything up. This is a change election. And so if Hillary Clinton's defense is going to be, look, everybody does this. This is just politics. This is what's been driving some of the anger out there, number one. Number 2, you mentioned Bill Clinton. Well, there's some other revelations here that people shouldn't forget, which is about the Clinton Foundation. At one point, Bill Clinton accepting a $1 million check from Qatar, a U.S. ally, for the Clinton Foundation on his birthday, when Hillary Clinton in other emails is saying Qatar is helping support and fund ISIS. So which one is it? Are they helping ISIS, or are you willing to take a $1 million check to help the foundation? Some big stories here, Martha.
It's clearly the kind of stuff that has fired up Trump supporters from the beginning. The feeling that they're shut out, that everybody makes these deals, and that they're not part of it as American citizens. Ed, thank you very much.
Great to see you next time. And we'll see how that plays out tomorrow night.
Joe Trippi, former Howard Dean campaign manager and Fox News contributor, and Boris Epshteyn is senior advisor to the Trump campaign. Gentlemen, welcome. Great to have both of you with us. Let me swing over to you, Joe, first. In terms of these charges of a rigged election, is it true, A, and B, does it get him anywhere?
I think it gets him someplace with his supporters, gets him to the, make sure you get to the polls, but I don't think it gets him anywhere. He may have a point with some of the contributions that reporters have given. I mean, that argument. Yeah. But the rigged fraud part is just nowhere near reality.
Boris, sometimes he argues that the polling centers are rigged. And then some of his surrogates argue, no, that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about the media rigging it toward Hillary Clinton. Well, so what is it?
It's both. First of all, 96% of donations by the media in this cycle has been to Hillary Clinton. 96%. Second of all, just last week, the coverage of the 2 negative stories, the false accusations versus Donald Trump versus the WikiLeaks and the FOIA information by Hillary Clinton, 23 to 1. 23 times coverage of Mr. Trump's negative stories versus Hillary Clinton's. Now, on the polling, on the voting, I was on the McCain campaign in 2008. Right here in the state of Nevada, most of the Dallas Cowboys offensive line and the starting lineup really was registered to vote here fraudulently. Look through Pennsylvania, Colorado, where dead people supposedly voted, Virginia, and just the fire. Well, they can't vote because they're dead. And then hold on, Joe. And then in North Carolina, you just had the firebombing right now of the GOP headquarters. That's voter intimidation. Voter fraud has many faces to it. It's voter intimidation, it's voter registration fraud, and then it's actual voter fraud. And now we also know from the Washington Post, that non-citizens have been voting in this country. Yeah. So yes, both of these issues are true.
It's a legitimate concern for any American. Everybody wants our election system. It's the bedrock of our democracy. It has to be as clean as humanly possible.
Yeah, so this is how clean it is. Study fall elections since 2000, over 1 billion people have voted. 31 cases of documented voter fraud.
Study by who?
In the United
States. The Brennan Center, which is a known left center.
No, like there's not a single study on voter fraud out there, unless it's been from
the Pew study, the Washington. I just cited the Washington Post. The Pennsylvania report alone found 700 instances.
Are you arguing that there were 30 or 31 votes in total?
No, 31 documented cases where.
But the cases involved how many votes?
Not that many. It's just this is a very rare thing in this country, and that's what I think is wrong. Look, I think there are legitimate questions. I think Boris named off a couple. I mean, the contributions, coverage, those kinds of things. If you want to talk about that, I think Trump can go to town on it. But to insinuate and tell people that this election is being rigged and stolen at the voting booth, these states, Ohio, Florida, they're run by Republican Secretary of States, Republican governors.
Well, we're talking about other states like Pennsylvania, Colorado, Virginia.
Oh, so it's only happened in the Democrat.
It's happened in Ohio. Here's the issue. I don't understand why the Democrats are against integrity of the election. All we're saying is we want to make sure that non-citizens don't vote, that voters are not intimidated at the polling places like they were in 2008 with the new Black Panthers in Pennsylvania. What's wrong with that?
What do you say to those critics who say he's just preparing a reason? If he loses, it's going to be all about this. It won't be because he had any missteps. It'll be all about this.
We're not preparing to lose. We're going to win this election. We'll win it on the issues. We'll win it on national security, on the economy, and on Hillary Clinton being absolutely disqualified from being president. And now with all the
There's another explanation of this is a get out the vote effort drive. Is there truth to that?
Well, we obviously want as many Republicans, independents, as well as Democrats
I get it,
to
but
vote.
Is this part of the strategy?
The strategy, Bill, is to make sure that there is integrity in our elections. And that's what Mr. Trump is talking about. But it's also to point out that there has been rampant voter fraud all over this country, in this state, in the state of Nevada, in Colorado, in Pennsylvania, in Ohio where they have same-day voting and registration, rampant voter fraud by Acorn in 08. And since they bust people from Illinois to Ohio to vote.
What about the journalism argument that journalists should not be supporting and giving money to any candidate?
I'm not sure.
A, and then B, that is also reflected in the coverage. That when you look at the front of the Washington Post, you look at the front of the New York Times, the WikiLeaks stories are this big, and the Trump stories and these accusations that could be unfounded are everywhere.
I'm not sure. I mean, I know that it said media contributions to Clinton. I maxed out to Hillary Clinton. People should know that, but I mean, it's obvious.
You're a partisan.
But I'm not a journalist.
Exactly.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Totally
so I don't know who am I. But when they put those figures out, am I
about journalists, talk about hosts, talk about people who write in the papers.
No, that's what I meant. So I don't think I don't believe the anchors should be doing that. I don't think
we will see if Trump talks about it again today. Joe, thank you. Boris, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Remember this now from presidential debate number 2. It was 9 days ago when we got these allegations now. Some suggest they are bombshells. Quid pro quo in the Hillary Clinton email investigation. FBI files show an unnamed bureau official said that a State Department staffer offered the FBI a deal to strip the classified marking from an email on Clinton's server, and apparently they tried it repeatedly. The State Department just this morning denies any collusion on this deal.
We looked into this, the FBI looked into this, and it's just not true. There was no quid pro quo even suggested or any kind of bargain laid on the table. What did happen, and what did happen though, is Pat Kennedy did talk to the FBI, as he did on other email traffic that we were getting ready to release through FOIA, to discuss and try to better understand why they wanted something classified.
All right, so no collusion. That's John Kirby from earlier. John Bolton, now former U.S. ambassador to the UN. So the FBI says there was no, in the end, this for that. No one got anything. But it is clear that the request was made, and it may have been done, according to our reporting this morning, on numerous occasions. Now, what are we to understand about how serious the nature of this allegation is?
Well, I think it's extraordinarily serious, and the fact that the trade wasn't made doesn't detract from that. Attempted bribery is just as much a crime as actual bribery. Let's say two things on this. Remember Rod Blagojevich, the governor of Illinois, who, given the vacancy in an Illinois Senate seat when Barack Obama was elected president, said, "I've got something golden here I'm going to trade." And for that, Blagojevich went to jail. What Patrick Kennedy was trading here was slots for the FBI and American embassies overseas. It may not sound like much, but in the bureaucracy, that was golden too. So in a way, Patrick Kennedy is the Rod Blagojevich of Hillary Clinton's State Department. Number two, he was an undersecretary of state. I was once myself. There are only 6 of them in the State Department. He's not some munchkin. And I think he's really the circuit breaker between the State Department bureaucracy and Hillary Clinton. Under Kennedy are diplomatic security, information technology, overseas buildings, human resources, administration. This is where it all comes together. And I think he was communicating with Hillary Clinton or with her staff. I think they knew what was going on, and if they didn't, they were asleep at the switch.
The judge was on this program exactly at this hour yesterday. You're an attorney. He says the mere suggestion of this is a crime in itself. Could you win that case in court?
This is attempted bribery. Yeah, absolutely. It is inconceivable to me that a State Department official could do this. You can't change the classification of information, whether it's a document or some other tangible form, for any reason other than a change in the circumstances that gave rise to the classification in the first place. Patrick Kennedy was doing a political task for Hillary Clinton, trading on government information and government resources, the slots in the overseas embassies. So this was bribery with your taxpayer assets at stake. It's just he should be removed from office. Certainly, if I had tried to do it, I would have been removed.
Yeah, I get it. If she wins in 21 days, what is the hangover from these allegations, or perhaps
I think it's
if she's president?
Yeah, look, I think it means that all of the questions about her conduct at the State Department continue. Remember, another aspect of Patrick Kennedy, he was deeply involved in Benghazi. He is the person who appointed the Accountability Review Board that exonerated Hillary Clinton of any wrongdoing in connection with Benghazi, any incompetence, without even ever bothering to interview her. And the emails in question that he was trying to trade on were Benghazi-related emails. I mean, this cries out for the State Department not going into a defensive crouch, but opening this up, because the conduct is unacceptable.
I'm out of time. Thank you, sir. Mr. Ambassador John Bolton, thank you for your time today. You bet. Martha.
Melania Trump speaking on camera for the first time since the release of the video that rocked her husband's campaign, how she is responding to those remarks and to the backlash. When we
said that, wasn't one of the 2 individuals involved in the conversation. Pat Kennedy and the other FBI official was not the person who gave this interview. I can't speak to what that individual remembers or how they remember it. What I can tell you is we've looked into this. There was no quid pro quo even suggested. There wasn't even an inkling of that. And the FBI said the same thing.
Joining us now, special report anchor Bret Baier and Jennifer Griffin, who has been on the Clinton campaign and covering that throughout. Welcome to both of you. Great to be with you here in Las Vegas.
You guys winning or losing out here, by the way?
Even so far.
Really?
Yeah. Not too much time out here.
Yeah, in Vegas, that means
right.
I wish I could say the same, but we'll get into that later. So, Patrick Kennedy, is this issue, there's been such a huge faucet full of this information coming out. How do you think it works with the American people? Can Donald Trump use this to his advantage if he can sort of grasp it and make sense out of it tomorrow night for the people?
I think it just fits in this overall feeling like there is this other level that Hillary Clinton is somehow exempt from the law that would dictate what would happen if somebody else did some of this stuff. The Patrick Kennedy thing, again, it's complicated. We explain it, I think, pretty well. But he is trying to get this email unclassified so then he can have this arcane FOIA, Freedom of Information Act process to bury this thing in the State Department. So nobody sees it, but it is unclassified, so it's technically not a classified email on her server. That was the problem. When she came out at the United Nations and said what she said, there were likely people inside her campaign and inside her staff that said, wait a second, boss.
Now, listen, they're saying it did not happen in the end, and who knows what is next in this story. But you can trace it through the emails, and I think in time we'll figure out what the truth is. I thought you had an excellent piece last night with Ed Henry, because there's such a volume of these emails, as Martha points out. How much of this is being absorbed by voters? How much of it is getting coverage? We talk about it. Sometimes we feel like we're the only ones.
Yeah. And it's worth spending the time because you need context. You need perspective of where these emails fall in these different subjects. So we decided to give it, 7-8 minutes of our show to try to put it together. We'll do it again because these things are flowing by the thousands.
Again today.
Yeah.
But to use it effectively, Donald Trump tomorrow night needs to sort of have, a 5-point plan and say, you have, Hillary Clinton, a corrupt government that you've overseen, and here's 5 examples that people can sort of wrap their arms around. I don't know if he, has successfully done that in the past. He said you should be in jail, that kind of thing. But how does she respond to that? What do you think her camp is ready for tomorrow night, Jennifer?
Well, I think what you're seeing the Clinton campaign do is they want to play out the clock. They know that every day that Donald Trump is on the campaign trail speaking, he is taking up airtime. These women who are coming out accusing him of sexual assault, it is diverting attention away from not only the WikiLeaks leaks every day, 2,000 emails or so from John Podesta, her campaign manager, but also, and this is an important distinction for our audience, the Patrick Kennedy conversations came out of the FBI notes from the investigation into her. So the whole thing is very ugly. And the thing the Clinton campaign worries about is that it will cause voters not to go to the polls. If women in particular find that this race is so distasteful that they stay home, that's a problem for Clinton.
Some of the Wall Street Journal reporting yesterday on the polling suggests that we're seeing that already. Take us behind the curtain of the Clinton campaign. They are reaching in the red states. What red states are they? Do they feel they are truly in play? Or is this because she has a lot of money and has time to spend?
Well, she certainly has a lot of money. She's been fundraising. And what's interesting is Robbie Mook, her campaign manager, yesterday had a conference call in which he described how they're spending $6 million candidate at Bronx trying to help Democrats retake the Senate. So any place you see that Hillary Clinton is traveling in the next few days, it is because there's early voting starting. So she's going out to Ohio and Pennsylvania and Florida, key states where early voting is starting. 45% of the votes will be cast before Election Day. So every day is Election Day for the Democrats right now, and they are spending money on races that you wouldn't expect. They're going to spend $2 million in Arizona, which is typically Democrats have not won Arizona since 1992.
You're spending money in Texas.
Indiana, Missouri, red states, Georgia. They think Georgia is in play. So this is a very interesting strategy. They also, I'm told, they want to run up the electoral map. They want this to be a punishing victory, not just for Donald Trump.
So you are talking as if that they have a big sense of confidence at the moment.
Very big sense of confidence if they look at the analytics. This is a campaign built on analytics. It's not built on a feeling. It's not built on a message. It is on analytics. It's about getting out the vote in these battleground areas. They are even putting money into congressional districts in Nebraska and Maine where they can pick off one electoral vote because those states have divide up their electoral
talk
votes.
about a campaign that was built on a feeling, and you talk about Donald Trump, and you look at a place like Arizona. I haven't heard him talk about the border in quite some time. You think about the themes that really worked for him. The forgotten man, right? I mean, that's a potent campaign. The border, toughening our stance around the world. These are issues that worked for him so profoundly and helped him win the primary, and they're getting lost in the shuffle, I think many would say, Brett.
Yeah, I would think that immigration comes up pretty significantly in the debate Wednesday night. I do agree with you, though. He has now taken a different turn to, this being rigged, and rigged in multiple ways. The media is rigging it, and you look at the WikiLeaks and how many interchanges there are, the actual voting and concerns about the election, and that's raising some questions, some alarm bells for not only Democrats but Republicans about how that's going to be perceived. And one more thing on the WikiLeaks. The other thing is that some people see this as a direct threat to our sovereignty because Russia is believed to be behind this, and they believe that this is not fully being examined on that front. I think it is. We're raising it as well, but there's also substance in these emails.
Well, I think it's important to point out, Brett, that the Democrats in the Clinton campaign are also crying that this is a Watergate situation. They are saying that Russia's involvement with WikiLeaks and the exposure of these emails is the equivalent of stealing filing cabinets during Watergate. So both sides are now pointing fingers, calling this out.
I also want to point this out, too. Trump's calling for a drug test before the big debate tomorrow night. So in 2016, folks, this actually happened at the press room at the White House. Watch.
Donald Trump suggested that presidential candidates should have to take a drug test. White House response?
Well, so you're telling me that the candidate who snorted his way through the first two debates is accusing the other candidate of taking drugs? It's a curious development in the campaign.
Yeah, I think he was trying to be glib there, but I mean, Howard Dean had to walk back what he said, so we'll see what happens here.
Unbelievable. I mean, it is unbelievable. You just, it's like a movie, but it's real.
On the Clinton team, does anyone think the absurdity of some of the exchanges back and forth have gone overboard or have crossed the line where even regular campaign watchers would have said, we've gone there?
Oh, yes. In fact, we hear it all the time. I think their biggest problem is trying to keep a straight face through this and also not to look too gleeful when they see what they see as unforced errors by Donald Trump.
Which is what the Saturday Night Live skit is all about,
Matadors, right?
I love that with the wing.
You don't want to celebrate too early.
Thank you, Brett.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Brett. Good to see you both. So as we've been reminding you, and as we hope you remember, for the first time ever, tomorrow night a Fox News journalist will be moderating a presidential debate. We've done lots of primaries. This is a very big moment for Fox, and we're proud of Chris Wallace, and he's going to do a great job tomorrow night as he sits down to moderate the final debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern, live from the campus of the University of Nevada here in Las Vegas.
Has anyone seen Wallace? I mean, what's he doing, Brad? Is he in a cave? Or?
I don't know. He's holed
up.
He's holed up. But you know what?
So Melania Trump speaking out on camera for the first time about the 2005 video of her husband Donald making comments about women that many felt were lewd and clearly inappropriate. So she says that the video does not show the man that she knows and that she has accepted his apology. Watch.
Those words, they were offensive to me. And they were inappropriate.
Is it fair for the media to bring up Bill Clinton's past or for Donald Trump to bring up Bill Clinton's past?
Well, if they bring my past, why not?
So they're asking for it?
They're asking for it. They started from the beginning of the campaign, putting my picture from modeling days, as you want that to be your first lady.
Hurt feelings there, to be sure. Rich Lowry joins us now, editor of the National Review and a Fox News contributor. Matthew Littman is political consultant and former speechwriter to Vice President Joe Biden. Gentlemen, welcome. Good to have you both here today. This was something that needed to happen. Melania Trump needed to come out and speak on behalf of her husband. Was it too late? And will it be effective? What do you think, Rich?
Well, you're right. Any sort of scandal of this nature, you need the spouse out there vouching for the candidate. She's a very elegant lady, and I think she did the best she could. I don't think it's going to change perceptions one way or the other, really. I mean, that tape is so vivid. Donald Trump is such a big and dominating personality. it doesn't really, it's more his performance that matters rather than what anyone else is saying about him, even his wife.
Let's play one more soundbite from this interview, and then we'll get Matthew to weigh in.
He's not the man that we heard him on the tape. Many times I gave him an advice and I didn't agree to do all the tapes on Howard Stern with Billy Bush, because I know those people, they hook him on. They try to get from him some inappropriate and dirty language.
I mean, there's some truth to that, to be sure, Matthew, that, you know, in those environments, when you're on with Howard Stern, he wants to get something saucy and salacious out of everybody he has on. I think most people, Howard Stern has said he's not going to release those tapes because specifically for that reason. Does this help Donald Trump politically, this speaking out by Melania Trump?
Well, there are three problems with the interview yesterday. She's a fine spokesperson, but the problems are this. One is you have to be with your spouse when you're giving a talk like this to show that there's some warmth in your relationships and that you actually forgive the person for the statements that they've made. They've appeared together before, so I don't know why they didn't appear together now. The other thing is she hasn't appeared on the campaign for a really long time. I think basically since the convention, too, is she went after this media conspiracy with the Clintons, but also saying that the New York Post was part of that media conspiracy. The New York Post may be literally the only newspaper in America that endorses Donald Trump. And then three, the bigger point is she's saying that Howard Stern basically pulled Trump around by his nose and Billy Bush pulled Trump around. All they have to do is sort of egg him on a little bit. How is he falling for all of these people who are able to egg him on so much? Billy Bush, Howard Stern, and it's not dissimilar to what Putin has done to Donald Trump. Putin basically said Donald Trump's a smart guy, and Donald Trump then came out and said, we may not need NATO. I mean, so, you know, it's not just the Billy Bush and Howard Stern thing. If this is manifesting itself for Trump in other ways, if you compliment him or lead him on a little bit, he ends up doing whatever you want, basically.
Martha, can I just...
I mean, when you think about it, just from a purely political viewpoint, there's been way too many days spent on this, right? And I think Matt makes a really good point, that if they had sat down together, which they still could, I think it would have helped them to put this to rest. And we really have not seen, I mean, I know Ivanka has been on that trail, and they've done interviews and all of that, but not to the extent that you might have expected, given the fact that coming out of the convention, everybody, all they could talk about was the family and how great they all were, especially the women.
Right. Absolutely right. A candidate that has such a problem with women voters, you think he'd make more of an effort to have his wife and his daughter out there. Now, look, you're not going to have Melania standing behind him at one of these rallies where he's, you know, going on for an hour, but you can do other kind of events where he's with her, and certainly featuring Ivanka more, you know, whose whole brand is about being the working professional mother. Instead, the main surrogates, you know, they're Rudy and they're Christy and Newt, all of whom have their virtues and advantages, but they're not going to soften Trump up any. And Martha, I think politically, Trump needs to, the extent he can, just stop talking about this, stop talking about the accusers, stop talking about the election being rigged, and instead go back to his core message of change. If he has any chance of tightening this thing up on the end, that's what he needs to do.
I'll say it again. I mean, we've said that we got to go, but you know, we've seen politicians all the time say, I've said all I'm going to say about that, and move on.
Well, Rich is right, though. You have to repeat your core message. Rich is right. You have to repeat your core message over and over again for it to break through.
Intro politics. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Rich. Good to see you.
So the Clinton team now fighting back.
Your family's safety and your country's safety as though it meant nothing to her at all.
Donald Trump blasting Hillary Clinton. This after allegations one of her top aides at the State Department, Undersecretary Pat Kennedy, offered the FBI more job slots overseas in exchange for lowering the classification for one of Clinton's emails. Guy Cecil from Priorities USA Action. He was political director of Clinton's 2008 presidential campaign. And Guy, thank you for your time, and good morning to you back there in Washington, D.C.
Good morning.
If this comes up tomorrow night, what's going to be her defense?
Well, I expect it to come up tomorrow because what else could Donald Trump possibly do to distract from the horrible 2 weeks he's had? I think that there are a couple of really important points here. First of all, on the issue of classification itself, it is common for folks within departments and between departments to discuss classification of emails. And I think more importantly, both the FBI and the State Department have called into question the initial report, acknowledging that there was no quid pro quo, acknowledging, in fact, that parts of the email were classified, but also even further within the report, there were conflicts between two reports that happened and were released this week. And so at the end of the day, I think she'll address it.
Yeah, the mere suggestion of it is a crime. So how does she address it then, Guy?
Well, I think with the facts, and also by pointing out the fact that neither she nor the campaign were involved in this discussion as it was ongoing.
Here is part of the email on screen, redacted. That's an individual's name at the FBI. Indicated that he had been contacted by Patrick Kennedy, Undersecretary of State, who had asked his assistance in altering the email's classification in exchange for a quid pro quo. And apparently it wasn't just one time. It was repeatedly. So now you start to get into the potential for a pattern for requests for low-end classifications to essentially protect her. And just on the surface, Guy, it doesn't look good.
Well, first of all, as you might imagine, I was not a part of the internal conversation, so I think some of these questions would be best addressed to the State Department and the FBI. However, I would note that you just happened to leave out the part of the report that actually directly contradicted this and said, in fact, it was the FBI that had brought this up. So I think you have a conflicting report. You have a New York Times story today that says both the FBI and the State Department suggest that there was no quid pro quo, and in fact, there wasn't one offered. And so I think to get to the bottom of it, these questions should be directed to the two agencies. But it's important to point out that neither Hillary nor the Clinton campaign had anything to do with these conversations. And at the end of the day, the reason Donald Trump is discussing it is to distract from the fact that he has had probably the worst 2 weeks in modern presidential campaign history.
There was another story from USA Today, and that shows the links between companies and fundraisers for Hillary Clinton lobbying the State Department. These are major American companies: Microsoft, Pfizer, ExxonMobil, all gave donations between $1 and $5 million. It just gets you back into this area, Guy, where everybody in Washington is swimming in the same pool. And to the voter on the outside that's looking for change and looking to try and make their life better, they see this as being the root of the problem in Washington, and the politics and the intersection of money is at the heart of it all. And now you have a major candidate who is being mixed up yet again in the money, in the policies on a government level, in addition to recruiting money from overseas governments. And if she is the President of the United States, there will be questions about whether or not there is an inherent conflict of interest as to what they were doing all along. I'll give you the last word on that, Guy. Go.
Sure. So I would.
You called last night Hillary Clinton a bigot. Previously, you called her policies bigoted. You directly called her a bigot.
Well, she is a bigot because you look at what's happening to the inner cities. You look at what's happening to African Americans and Hispanics in this country, where she talks all the time. She's talking, look at the vets, where she said the vets are being treated essentially just fine, that it's over-exaggerated what's happening to the vets not so long ago.
But how is she bigoted? Bigoted is,
well, because
having hatred toward a
she's
particular
selling
group.
them down the tubes, because she's not doing anything for those communities. She talks a good game,
So you're
but she
saying
doesn't do anything.
she has hatred
Her
or
policies are
dislike of black
bigoted.
people?
Her policies are bigoted because she knows they're not going to work.
But you're saying she is personally bigoted.
Oh, she is. Of course she is.
You're
Her
saying-
policies, they're her policies. She comes out with the policies, and others that believe like she does also. But she came out with policies over the years. This is over the years, long time. She's totally bigoted. There's no question about
But it does
that.
imply
Look at
that
what's,
she has antipathy, she has hatred toward, in this case, I guess
I
you're talking
think
about
she,
African
I
Americans, but I
think
don't know what
she
the words
has
here.
been extremely, extremely bad for African Americans. I think she's been extremely bad for Hispanics. You look at what's happened with her policies and the policies of President Obama and others. Look at the poverty. Look at the rise in poverty. Look at the rise in violence.
But hatred is at the core of that, or
Oh,
dislike
well,
of African American
or
people?
maybe she's lazy. I don't know what it is. All I can tell you is I've been hearing the same stuff from her and others for years. And the inner cities today are worse than they ever have been.
Have you always thought she was bigoted, though? I mean, you were supportive.
Honestly, I never thought of it. I never thought, as a business person, I never thought of it. I got along with all politicians.
But I mean, she
got
has a
along,
history of working
Anderson,
with
as you know,
African-Americans for
I got
African-Americans.
working, but not doing the job. And I'm now bringing it out for the first time. She hasn't done the job.
The overwhelming number of African Americans who support her, what do they?
Well, take a look at what's happened over the last 2 weeks since I've been talking about the subject. Take a look at what's happened. Take a look at your most recent polls. I mean, the ones over the last 3 or 4 days.
You think
since
you
we've
can
gone.
make a difference? You can get a higher number among African
Oh, I
Americans?
think we're going to do well with the African Americans because they're going to give me a chance. Because frankly, look what she's done. What's to give a chance? I mean, she's been a disaster. The inner cities are worse than they've ever been. You have 40% rates of poverty. You have black youth that can't get jobs. 58% can't get jobs. Education is a disaster. They've been talking about this since I was 5 years old and understood what was going on. They have been talking about this for years. Hillary Clinton talks about it all the time. She has done a horrible job. And then you add all of the scandal and the lies and the deception to the emails. She should be in jail. Hillary Clinton should be in jail. You know it. The FBI director knows it. Everybody else knows it. She should be in jail. What she did with erasing 33,000 emails, she shouldn't be out even talking about inner cities or running for president.
One of the things you've been saying recently in talking to African Americans, addressing them in large rallies, is saying, what have you got to lose? What the hell have you got to lose?
Absolutely, that's the way I look at it.
The way you've been categorizing that, we've been interviewing a lot of African American voters. Some of them are insulted by some of the language you've been using.
I don't think they are. I think if they actually heard me, they wouldn't be insulted at all.
Well, you're
I
saying
actually say
you
to
get
them,
shot on your street, you don't have jobs, you don't have schools.
Well, that's the fact.
Well,
They're shot on their streets. Look at Chicago.
But for the vast majority of African Americans, that's not. I mean, the vast majority do not live in poverty.
40% are living in poverty. Would you say that's a pretty
26%.
big? Well, I have 40. I have a different stat
The
than you
Kaiser
do.
Foundation has 26%.
I have 40%. Whether it's 26 or 40. Look, you can look at it anyway, and I know you want to protect her as much as you possibly
No,
can.
I'm not
but let me
interested in
just tell you,
protecting her.
Anderson, she has done a horrible job. Her policies don't work. It's a disaster for African Americans, and you see what's happening because many of them who watch my speeches are saying, he's right. They've been doing this for 50, 60, 70 years. And I say, what do you have to lose?
Some of you
And I'll
are-
tell you something, not only what do you have to lose, I will fix it.
Some of your African American supporters that we've talked to said they would like to see you go into an African American church or
I'm going to
directly
do
talk
that
into
very soon. In
a
fact,
group.
I'm going to Detroit, and I'll be going to some other places. I've been invited to many. I'll be doing that very soon.
So that's definitely something you're going to do.
Oh, I'm going to do it. Yeah, sure. I look forward to it. In
What
fact, I
sort
think
of-
I'm doing it over the next 2 weeks. I'm doing a couple of visits.
How much improvement do you think you can make in the African American vote?
I can't tell you. I can only tell you I can fix the inner cities.
Let me talk
She
to-
can't. She doesn't. Not only can't she doesn't have a chance.
I want to start by what Hillary Clinton is now coming at you with. I talked to her last night. She called in my show. She said that you are bringing hate mainstream by embracing the so-called alt-right movement, that you're peddling bigotry, prejudice, and paranoia.
Well, first of all, we're bringing love. You see these rooms, they're packed with people that have been just left behind. I call it the forgotten man and women. They have been left behind, Anderson, by people like her who are third-rate politicians who talk and they don't produce. You look at our inner cities are a disaster, and the African-American people are realizing that the Democrats who have run these inner cities for 75 years and 100 years, they've just left them, they've forgotten. They get
Are
their
you
vote.
embracing the alt-right movement, though?
I don't
mean,
even
Steve
know.
Bannon?
Nobody even knows what it is, and she didn't know what it was. This is a term that was just given that, frankly, there's no alt-right or alt-left. All I'm embracing is common sense.
Well, Steve Bannon did say Breitbart is sort of the voice of the alt-right movement.
I don't know what Steve said. All I can tell you, I can only speak for myself. You see the crowds we have. You see the enthusiasm in them. These are great people. These are people that have not been heard for many years, and now they've been heard. First time in many, many decades. In fact, some people say the first time, period. And I think we're going to do very well. You see what's going on with the polls over the last 3 or 4 days. I think we're going to do very well. But
I want to read
she is somebody that's all talk, no action. Look at the lies. Look at the deception. Look at what's happened with her emails. Look at the erasing of 33,000 emails. She should be ashamed of herself. She should get back to work for the people. She doesn't do that.
I want to read you one more thing that she just said today in her speech. She said, "This is what I want to make clear today. A man with a long history of racial discrimination who traffics in dark conspiracy theories drawn from the pages of supermarket tabloids and the far reaches of the internet should never run our government or command our
No, it's an
military."
incorrect statement. First of all, we were sued many, many years ago when I was very young. by the government, sued many, many companies. You know that. It wasn't me. They sued many companies.
But your company was sued for not allowing black people.
And you know what? They found nothing. They found absolutely nothing.
You settled.
They bring up a case. I settled with no awards, no nothing.
But didn't people in your company use the words?
I don't even know. Honestly, what a superintendent does at a building, that I can't tell you. But I can just tell you that they settled the case, and that was the end of it. It was many years ago, and I guess they found we did nothing wrong because we didn't have to do anything. We didn't have any payments to make. We didn't have to pay $20 million in fines. We didn't have any.
You didn't pay any money in order to settle?
We didn't. It's a long time ago, but I don't believe so, no.
Welcome to Hannity, and tonight the race for the White House is in the final stretch, and voters will be headed to the polls in just 18 short days. Now, Donald Trump, he'll be here in just a minute with reaction, but first, it's been a very big week in politics. Now, the candidates, they faced off in their third and final debate in Las Vegas. The liberal mainstream media, they lost their minds over Donald Trump's comments about accepting election results, despite, of course, a long history of Democrats doing the exact same thing. And although Fox News cannot independently verify, undercover tapes from Project Veritas appear to expose very sinister schemes by Democrats to incite violence at Trump rallies and to commit massive voter fraud. And tomorrow, the GOP nominee will make a major pledge to American voters in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Joining us now with details, 2016 Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump. Mr. Trump, how are you?
I'm very good. Thank you, Sean.
Can you give us a preview? It almost sounds like a contract with America or promises to America that you're going to be talking about tomorrow. What can you tell us?
Well, we're going to be doing a lot of things. We're going to be lowering taxes. We're going to be strengthening our border. We're going to be getting rid of regulations. The regulations are going to be gone because, I mean, you look at this country, what's happening with regulations, and we need them for security and we need them for certain things like the environment, but our regulations are just taking over our companies. We can't compete anymore. We're going to be terminating, repealing, and replacing Obamacare. We're going to be saving our Second Amendment. There are a lot of things, Sean. It's going to be, I think it's going to be very special.
Differences. The Supreme Court vetting refugees, saying radical Islam, cutting taxes, raising taxes, keeping Obamacare, getting rid of Obamacare, building a wall, not building a wall, energy independence, no independence, education top down to the states. Those are deep, profound differences. Do you think the voters understand the choice that is theirs this election?
Well, I think they do, and I think if they watch the debates, they would really understand a lot. I mean, right now, I think you have two very clear choices. You have a really clear choice between Hillary Clinton and myself. And if you just look at the stances on everything, she's going to raise taxes, I'm going to lower taxes. She's going to increase regulations, I'm going to cut regulations down to a minimum, a good number, but down to a minimum. And there's so many different things. We're going to rebuild the military, we're going to take care of our vets, we're going to save the Second Amendment, we're going to repeal and replace Obamacare, which is a total disaster. She wants to make it even a bigger mess and going to spend trillions and trillions of dollars on it. It's crazy what's going on. And so you have a really clear choice. You have a very, very distinct choice.
You had been very critical in the media throughout this entire process. Now through WikiLeaks, we know the following news organizations: Univision, NBC, ABC, CBS, the New York Times, Politico, the Boston Globe, all of these organizations, CNN, in one way, fashion, or form, have been in the pocket of Hillary Clinton. What's your reaction to that?
Well, it's totally brutal. I mean, you could do something that's, just fabulous. It's perfect. Everything's great. And then they end up giving you bad news and bad stories, bad coverage. It's the single greatest pylon, they say. This isn't me saying it. This is other people and even news organizations. The single greatest pylon. Despite that, you just saw the crowd we had outside. We're in Pennsylvania now. We just left North Carolina. I'm going back to Pennsylvania. I'm going to a different section in Pennsylvania in a little while. We have a massive crowd there. It's been unbelievable what's going on. And I think that it's not pollable, although, as you know, 3 polls came out today saying I'm leading nationwide.
And look, it's a question of taxes. It's a question of borders. Do we want to have a country or not? We're going to have strong borders. And we're going to have people come into our country. But, Sean, they're going to come in legally through a process. They're going to come in legally. So, I think a lot was learned in the debates. I think you understand how we did and how well we did in the debates. And I think we really showed a big difference.
I want to ask you, and you did bring this up during the debate, I only want to play you one small clip of the Project Veritas videos. And it's about the flow of money to these operatives that admit and brag that they're fomenting and causing violence, even back in the Chicago incident in March, but also talking about a massive voter fraud plan that they have and they want to orchestrate. I want you to hear how the money flows and then respond to the two specific tapes. Listen to this.
I am contracted to him, but I answer to the head of special events for the DNC and the head of the special events and political for the campaign.
The campaign pays DNC, DNC pays Democracy Partners pays the Fogle Group goes and executes.
All right, so let me read it. It says the campaign pays the DNC pays Democracy Partners pays the Fogle Group. They're the people bragging about fomenting violence at your events, inciting it, and they're the people that also talk at length about massive voter fraud in this election. And you came under heavy fire after the debate for saying, I'll keep you in suspense about accepting the election outcome. What is your reaction to these
Sean,
tapes?
I've been saying for a long time, it's a rigged system. It's just terrible what's going on. And then the politicians play right along with it. I mean, you have 1.8 million people who are dead who are registered to vote, and some of them absolutely vote. Now, tell me how they do that. There's only one way. But you have 2.5 million people or so that are registered in 2 states. That means they're voting twice. Look, we have a system. I'm a big believer in the system. I love our country. But I think I've done a great service by pointing this out. And a lot of people agree with what I'm saying. That I can tell you. But when you look at those tapes, it's disgusting. Our rally in Chicago, that's where they were. They were there. And nobody could figure out what was going on. Where did these... And they're real thugs, by the way, real thugs. And they injured policemen. They injured people. And they should be put in jail. I mean, these are bad people. And again, it's a rigged system. And who got blamed for it? Our rally people. Us, me, everybody. We all got blamed for it.
You.
And
Hillary herself
it had nothing to do
you.
with us.
Well, the Democratic operative overseeing this visited the Obama White House 342 times. What does that mean to you?
Well, I think it's a disgrace. And I guess he saw the president 44 times, they say. Who knows? But I think it's disgraceful. Can you imagine the one who was overseeing violence? And this is a criminal act. I don't know if you saw the picture. Cops were leaving. These policemen, these great people were leaving with massive gashes in their head from these people. These are professional thugs. They were being paid $1,500 a day, and they got cell phones out of it. No, this is a very serious problem. And I think come November 8th, I think we're going to win. And maybe we're going to win bigger than people ever even dreamed. When you look at Pennsylvania, look at what's happening here. When you look at North Carolina, where it just left, you look at Ohio. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with some of the jobs, the companies that are leaving our country and going to Mexico and other places. You see what's happening with Obamacare, which is such a disaster. Obamacare is a catastrophe. The premiums are going up 60, 70, 80%. The care is no good. You can't even get it, the deductible side. I mean, say what you want. Bill Clinton said, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. He said that, and he probably suffered
New Mexico,
that night. But he said Obamacare is a disaster. It is a total disaster.
And welcome back to Hannity, and here's part 2 of my interview with the 2016 Republican nominee, Donald Trump. As I talk to you, I'm going to put up the headlines of WikiLeaks and the things we've discovered, including the latest solicitation, $12 million from a country that Secretary Clinton, as Secretary of State, thought abusing their own citizens. $12 million, also a paid appearance to go to the Clinton Foundation. On the side of you right now is a list of all of these revelations. I know you've been paying attention to it. The media has not. They've largely ignored it. What does this tell you about the Clintons and about the campaign and about their tactics? I mean, they even exposed how they would go after Obama and his father being a Muslim, and that Obama used cocaine, and going after Bernie Sanders and, of course, you. What do you get out of these WikiLeaks revelations?
Well, take a look at what's going on. I mean, look at, as an example, and this wasn't WikiLeaks, but look at what you just said about the voter fraud that was uncovered with the tapes. Look at what you said about the thugs going into arenas and starting problem. Look at what came out today about the New York Times, where they have reporters that are soft or safe or something. And I have those same reporters, and they are brutal. They're not brutal. They're dishonest. They're totally dishonest. It's a totally dishonest group of people. And you just take a look at what's happened. Look at how you get set up. I mean, they say you saw somebody in 1902. And you touch the person. I mean, give me a break. This is stuff that all doesn't exist, Sean. This is dirty, disgusting stuff, and they'll find out. It'll be revealed at some point. This is dirty, disgusting stuff. Yeah. And you know what? It's no way that it should be. We're supposed to be a great democracy. It's no way that it should be. I mean, a certain magazine wrote some horrible things. I guess it came out today. Nobody reports it. I'm not going to get involved in it, but nobody reports it. But if somebody calls up the newspaper and says just one thing, they make a big deal out of it.
Well, I mean, they interviewed a woman on CNN for 45 minutes. It turns out she's claiming you were molesting her on a plane, but it was okay for 15 minutes. And then an eyewitness came on with Judge Jeanine Pirro that said that never happened. I was sitting right next to them, and she was on a public plane with a lot of people. You would think she would have cried out for help, considering the length of time. They went with that, but you're right. They'll ignore the National Enquirer, which is what I think you're referring to.
By the way, it never happened. Never happened.
Right.
Okay?
Well, you have an eyewitness that corroborates that for you.
Just so you understand, all that stuff, it was fabricated, made up, never happened. When you see, they come like every 2 days. Never happened.
How does CNN
ever happened.
How does CNN put the woman on for 45 minutes, and then the guy that was sitting next to you? I think it's a disgrace. They don't even ask him one question.
It's the most rigged system I've ever seen, and I've been talking about it for a long time. And it was rigged against Bernie Sanders, and it's rigged even more against me. Well, it's a disgrace. They poison the voters with this kind of stuff and this kind of junk that never happened. It's not like a question like it may have. It never. None of it ever happened.
Obama, Al Gore, Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders have all themselves at different points said it's a rigged system, but I don't have time to get into it now. I was glad to see the other night there's so much money that have come from countries like the $1 million gift from Qatar. Qatar allows marital rape and marital beatings. The up to $25 million of the Clinton Foundation from the Saudis. The $10 million from the Saudis for the Clinton Library. Women can't drive. They're told how to dress. Gays and lesbians are killed. Christians and Jews are persecuted. But she takes the money. You want her to give it back. Has anybody in the media followed up on that?
No, absolutely not. You're not surprised, but she should give that money back. I brought it up during the debate. Give the money back. It's $25 million at a minimum. Give the money back. She didn't want to answer that question, if you noticed.
Yeah, I did notice that. But I consider, how can you be the champion of women's rights, gay and lesbian rights, religious freedom, and take money from countries that abuse all those groups?
Sean, you have seen things, and I've seen things, and I've been going through things. Nobody could imagine that this could happen in the United States. Nobody can even imagine it. But I'll tell you what, we're going to win the election, and we're going to clean out the swamp. You know, I'm using the expression, we're going to drain the swamp of Washington, D.C. It is a swamp of absolute corruption. It's absolutely corrupt. And we're going to drain the swamp. We'll see what happens. We're going to drain it, but we're going to win. We have such enthusiasm. And you saw what I just left this rally 2 minutes ago. In fact, I'm sitting in a room that's about 200 degrees. I've never seen it. It's like a steam room.
I know you love that.
And no, it's just wonderful. But I'll tell you what, at least you're on the side of exposing some of this stuff. The press doesn't want to do it. It's incredible what's going on in the country. But come November 8th, you watch. You saw this arena. It was packed with thousands of people outside. Something is going on that's very, very special. Plus, 3 polls came out today, including Rasmussen, and including another poll that caught it the most accurately 4 years ago. And they say I'm leading nationwide.
It's a 1-point lead. IDB, the Investors Business Daily Tip Poll, has you up by 1. They have been the closest in the last 3 cycles. I do think there are a lot of balls up in the air that haven't been factored into the polls yet, including the last debate, including the Project Veritas videos, including, I don't think the public is absorbing what I'm showing them every night in terms of the WikiLeaks reveals. All right, I know you've got to go. I want to ask you a final question, and give me as detailed an answer as you can. Tomorrow you're going to make a pledge and put it on paper for the American people. You're doing it in Gettysburg.
Right.
Give us a preview. What is this about? Is this like a contract with America?
Sean, I want to do it tomorrow. I don't want to do it right now. I really want to do it tomorrow. I can only say we're going to make America great again. We have so many problems. Our taxes are too high. We're going to reduce them. Our borders are weak. Our regulations are crazy. The drugs are pouring into our country. People are coming into the country that we really shouldn't have come into the country. We have drug lords and criminals and murderers. And I mean, what's going on in this country is incredible. Hillary wants open borders where people can just flow through. We're not going to have a country anymore. We are going to do something very special, and tomorrow I think is going to be a special day at a special place.
Did you have fun at the Al Smith dinner? Did you mind getting booed a little bit?
I did. Yeah. No, I look, we say what's true, and some people don't like hearing it, but we say what's true.
That's a pretty liberal crowd, though.
A lot of her people in there.
Yeah,
that's okay. It was a great dinner. It was a great dinner. No, I enjoyed it. I thought it was great.
All right. Did you get in trouble when you went home to Melania last night?
No, I didn't. She was great. She understood. That was probably the moment of the evening. People loved it.
All right. Mr. Trump, have fun on the campaign trail. I know you got a lot more to get to today. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, John.
And coming up next tonight, right here on Hannity.
If Hillary Clinton gets elected, we've got 4 more years of Obama. We have a disaster. We have ISIS all over.
Donald Trump continuing to go after Hillary Clinton on the campaign trail. The original insurgent, Patrick J. Buchanan, will join us, and also tonight.
We have a bunch of babies running our country, folks. We have a bunch of losers. They're losers. They're babies. We have a president. All he wants to do is campaign. His wife, all she wants to do is campaign. If Hillary Clinton gets elected, we've got 4 more years of Obama. We have a disaster. We have ISIS all over. We won't win anymore, and your taxes are going up. And she wants to double up and triple up on Obamacare, which has to be repealed and replaced. It's a disaster. We are going to start making things in America again. We are going to start making things in North Carolina again. We are bringing back our jobs. America first. Remember that.
All right, that was Donald Trump earlier today at a rally in North Carolina as he looks to build momentum ahead of Election Day. My next guest, the original insurgent, Patrick J. Buchanan, he penned a new article about the panic within the Republican establishment, writing, quote, "The establishment is horrified at Donald's defiance because deep within its soul, it fears that the people for whom Trump speaks no longer accept its political legitimacy or moral authority." Joining us now with reaction, the author of The Greatest Comeback, Patrick J. Buchanan. Pat, I agree 100%. There's a political earthquake that is going on. And in 20 days, there's going to be a huge discussion about the future of the Republican Party. One of the things most frustrating to me is when 65% in every primary poll of Republicans saying they feel betrayed and voting in record numbers for Trump, and then the establishment stepping all over him, being more critical to him than either Obama or Hillary, I think they have totally miscalculated the mood of the public. Your thoughts?
I'll tell you, Sean, it's not only the Republican establishment, the national establishment has lost the country. Trump's great accomplishment is to expose the fact that the establishment of this country is responsible for insecure borders, the masses coming across our borders, invading our country. They're responsible for the trade deals that have deindustrialized America and destroyed the jobs of millions of American workers. And they are responsible for getting us into endless and unwinnable wars. And he has exposed the disconnect between the national establishment, frankly, and the American people. And that is a great achievement for him. And WikiLeaks, Sean, has come along and exposed the fact that the core of the establishment, the media, is basically in cahoots with the Hillary Clinton campaign and the Democratic Party.
Pat, what we have learned, and that's another fight that we'll have November 9th this year, because this needs to be exposed in even more detail. But, of course, with our election coverage, we don't have the full time to devote to it. But you've got a Republican establishment, a Democratic establishment, a globalist establishment, and a media establishment that is all sort of in ways we never dreamed of aligned together. and it's now all been exposed. But I don't think the American people are absorbing the magnitude of that to this point. Will they absorb it within the next 18 days?
You know, I think, let me say this, Sean. The enormous fire and energy and size of the Trump rallies, the magnificent turnout inside the Republican Party for Cruz and for Trump, the huge turnout for Bernie Sanders, the fact that Trump, as of about 3 or 4 weeks ago, was tied with Hillary and had momentum, that tells you the country wants to be rid of this establishment. The way we are going now, we could get a real possibility that the Republican elites who were repudiated in the primaries and in their party, and the Democratic elites who basically fixed it against Bernie, they will together control the destiny of the country, and we will have a nation whose establishment represents Washington, not the nation it is supposed to serve. I think we're headed for some very difficult times, and frankly, some of these tactics that you have mentioned on your show about these folks in Chicago are really somewhat more disturbing than some of the things that happened in Watergate.
You know, I mean, look at what they're saying. You know, I just showed this to Mr. Trump. You got Hillary's campaign, Pat, paying the DNC, paying Democracy Partners paying an activist group that is on tape bragging about taking credit for violence at Trump events. It's organized everywhere, putting in these people to intimidate others, and massive voter fraud on a level. Again, both these things funded, according to their own words, by Hillary and her campaign.
Let's talk about the individuals that they allegedly. Now, if it is true that they sent people out to start fistfights and maybe ignite a riot and disrupt and destroy the Trump rally, if they were behind the Chicago thing, and if they were paid by the Clinton campaign, we are talking about the Clinton campaign financing brown shirt tactics in the streets of Chicago. I mean, they have called, you've been called, and I've been called fascists for something we said. Look, what took place in the attempt to disrupt and destroy a Democratic rally, those are fascist tactics in the streets of Chicago. I was in Chicago in 1968. Abe Ribicoff used that phrase, but he was attacking the Chicago cops, Sean. But if people are doing this, that's what Goebbels and Rome and the others did with the brown shirts.
Yeah. I want to know if they're saying in their own words is Hillary's campaign pays the DNC pays Democracy Partners pays for those fomenting violence and plotting and scheming voter fraud. Is it a fair question? What did Hillary know? When did she know it? What did her campaign know? When did she know it? And by the way, this guy, this operative who oversaw the whole thing, he went to the Obama White House 342 times. What did Obama know? And when did he know it?
Exactly. You know, Sean, the great question is if. Was this guy just shooting his mouth off and nothing happened and he wasn't paid for anything and he had some legitimate reason to go to the White House 300 times? But let me say this. I was in the White House in 1968, October 15th. They found out the dirty trickster, Donald Zagretti, had been sending pizzas to a Muskie rally. I mean, we had an emergency meeting in the White House. The FBI was all over this like a cheap suit. Where is they ought to immediately have this guy in and take a look at this and talk to the people involved in those riots in Chicago and question them as to whether somebody paid them. And does anybody know if these individuals, again, are just shooting their mouth off or they did what they're talking about? I mean, they were fired instantly. That suggests to me that the people that fired them know they were up to no good.
Yeah. All right, Pat, we're going to watch this. What's your prediction? How's this all going to play out? Who do you think's going to win this?
I think the Donald's behind the 8 ball right now, and what he's got to do, he's got to raise his polls basically in the general national polls from about at least 2 or 1 behind him, and that's the only way I think you're going to tip the whole thing over. He's got to win Florida, Ohio, North Carolina, Nevada, and Iowa, and then he's short by about 5 if he holds on to Arizona, of course, Texas, of course, and Georgia. So it's an uphill climb. He knows it, I'm sure, as do the folks. And I think there's still an outside chance to get that inside straight.
Listen, Pat Buchanan, nobody thought you'd beat a sitting president in New Hampshire, did they?
No, they didn't, but then they beat me in 33.
Well, you know, you could have stopped right there. I mean, it was a pretty big victory.
And listen, in 92, Sean, I didn't win it, but they thought in the White House I did win in New Hampshire.
All right, Pat Buchanan, the original insurgent. Thank you. And up next tonight, right here on Hannity.
She said, I can't recall 39 times. Well, that's a lie, because everything there she could recall.
All right, highlights from Donald Trump's rally today in Pennsylvania. We'll check in with Frank Luntz, Pat Caddell. They're here. Plus, more WikiLeaks revelations. The leaked emails now reveal Hillary Clinton's role in soliciting money from her family foundations, for her family foundation, allegedly runs far deeper than we all thought. Mercedes Schlapp, Charlie Hurt, they're here with reaction as Hannity continues.
Yesterday, you read the story of a great 4-star general who told one story to the FBI. They said it wasn't true, might have been a lie. And guess what? His life is destroyed. He could go to jail for 5 years. She lied over and over and over and over. 39 times, right? She said to the FBI. On July 4th weekend, not recorded and not sworn in. She said, I can't recall 39 times. Well, that's a lie, because everything there she could recall.
Donald Trump slamming Hillary Clinton over her ongoing server scandal. Also today, Fox News obtained a video from 2010 showing Hillary Clinton actually lecturing her staff at the State Department about, get this, using cybersecurity. All right, joining us now with reaction, pollster Frank Luntz and Fox News contributor Pat Caddell. Mr. Luntz, all right, I was impressed. Donald Trump, according to the Frank Luntz focus groups, won 2 of the 3 debates. That's a very high bar.
Yes, it is a high bar, but the challenge for him now is he's running 5 or 6 points behind. And Sean, there is still a path. It's a very small one, very narrow one, but that path goes based on rhetorical questions, and I'm going to give you 3 that you can ask again and again between now and Election Day. Is America safer today than it was 8 years ago? Does Hillary Clinton have the honesty and integrity to be president of the United States, and who is more likely to hold Washington accountable? If that is the focus, you can change millions of voter minds. The question is, will there be that discipline?
All right, what was the
and
last
will there
one?
be that focus?
Does Hillary Clinton, what was the last one?
Last one is, who is more likely to hold Washington accountable?
All right, Pat Caddell, what are your thoughts where we stand?
I think we stand, it's a little unclear because the polls are everywhere. And I find a lot of them pretty confusing, and I think I understand the business. But I think that he's several points behind, probably. But I think that there's more than a small pathway. I think there's a big pathway. The basic attitudes in this country are structured against the incumbent party, against Hillary Clinton and the Democrats. If Donald Trump can rise to making this a referendum, even bigger than what Frank Luntz is saying, the real issue here is who owns America, the people or the political class? Whose ox is being gored? The people know it's theirs. They believe the system is rigged against them economically. Trump's got to put these questions, and the question of, do we continue to go down the road of decline, or do we make changes, and do we overturn the corruption in Washington? Those are huge issues. His problem is he is being way too tactical and not strategic enough, in my opinion.
Let me ask you this. Do either one of you think that their polls, maybe there is a certain percentage of people that won't say they're voting for Trump, or is that just fantasy thinking among Trump supporters? I tend to say you got to believe the polls. Do you think there's a possible Brexit effect? I say you can't count on it. What do you say, Frank Luntz?
I agree with you. We polled in Brexit, and we had Leave beating Remain by 2 points. For us, the key was the subtext. What percentage of your friends and neighbors will vote to leave? What percentage of your friends? By asking it that way, you're more likely to get an honest answer. But Sean, if the focus is just on the polls over the next 18 days, then nothing is going to change. Because in the end, voters don't vote on polls. And I agree with Pat. The bigger the issue, the bigger the challenge The more this is about change versus the status quo, the more likely you will get a change electorate. But it requires those kinds of questions to actually move the opinions of voters.
Yeah, no, I think that's well said. As you've traveled around the country, I know you've discussed this. It's always very difficult for a Republican, because they always got to thread the needle unless they can somehow break into and get back some of those blue-collar voters that have gone Democrat in recent years, get people in states like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Ohio locked in, and Michigan. Does Donald Trump's message resonate any more than past Republicans because he's different on issues involving trade?
Let me give you a straight answer. The answer is yes. His message resonates more. His persona is what concerns people. And if it were just about his message, Sean, I believe that his language versus Hillary's, his position versus Hillary's, Trump wins. But on the persona, they see her as being experienced. They see her as being presidential. And they're not sure about
even though
his
they
temperament.
think, even though 70% think she's a liar and untrustworthy.
Absolutely. And that should be the issue.
Yeah.
But you just raised the point, Sean. If that's how they're voting, then Trump wins. But that's not been the focal point over the last 2 weeks.
And if he does that for 18 days, you think he comes back in a big way?
It's tough because they're not going to be standing side by side again between now and Election Day.
All right, Frank Luntz, good to see you. Thank you. Coming up, more stunning revelations from the WikiLeaks document dump. Hillary Clinton allegedly tried to personally solicit, get this, a $12 million donation to the Clinton Foundation from the King of Morocco, by the way, which she acknowledged was corrupt. Mercedes Schlapp, Charlie Hurt are here to weigh in, and more straight ahead. And welcome back to Hannity. So new revelations from WikiLeaks continue to expose Hillary Clinton and damage her campaign. The mainstream media, they're mostly ignoring what's being released, but we're keeping very close tabs on it right here on this program. Now, here are some of the biggest discoveries from this week alone. Hillary Clinton personally tried to secure a $12 million donation from the King of Morocco under the condition that she'd appear at a Clinton Foundation function in the country. Now, after Hillary apparently realized this would be after the launch of her presidential campaign and could hurt her politically, well, she then tried to back out. But her close aide, Huma Abedin, faulted Hillary for the fiasco by saying, quote, she created this mess and she knows it. We also have longtime Clinton ally Doug Band revealing that as a board member of the Clinton Global Initiative, well, he signed a conflict of interest agreement, but that, quote, Bill Clinton, he doesn't have to sign such a document, even though he is personally paid by 3 Clinton Global Initiative sponsors, gets many expensive gifts from them, and some of that at home. I could have had 5 different examples of things like that. Anyway, then there's the interim DNC chair, Donna Brazile, who's already under fire for leaking primary town hall questions to Hillary Clinton and her campaign. In another email, she trashed President Obama's economy. She said, quote, I think people are more in despair about how things are. Yes, new jobs, but they're low-wage jobs. Housing is a huge issue. Most people pay half of what they make to rent. Here now with reaction, Fox News contributor Mercedes Schlapp, from the Washington Times, Charlie Hurt. Well, I've been saying that about the economy. I'm glad that somebody really knows the truth about it, because they're not saying it on the campaign trail, Mercedes.
No, I think that there's a sense of let's stay quiet about the economy. I mean, President Obama and clearly Michelle Obama, since they've been out on the campaign trail for Hillary Clinton, they've made it a point to ensure that keep a happy face on and everything's going to be okay and it's going to be fine under Hillary Clinton. And so I think what's disturbing is the fact that Hillary Clinton is really trying to, I don't quite understand her vision, but sell herself as saying she's the one that's going to be able to create economic growth. But when you look at her plan, it's very clear, Sean, that when her tax plan alone increases taxes, we're going to see more regulations. We're going to see more of the same, which means economic disappointment for Americans.
Yeah. What is your take on the whole Morocco issue and the $12 million? Is that pay to play, Charlie? Because it certainly seems like it.
Oh, I think without any doubt that it's pay to play, and what's really funny about it is it's not surprising at all. As we dig through all these things, I mean, this stuff makes Machiavelli come off as Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. And what I love about it, the thing that my favorite part of it, all the lies, all the corruption, all the pay to play, the fully using the State Department as a vending machine for favors and massive donations to the foundation, is that this is all being exposed, and we've never seen an exposure like this of the inner workings of a campaign. And of course, it happens to the most secretive campaign that we've seen in modern times. And it is so it is so rich that all this is spilling out on the Clintons.
Yeah, could you imagine, Mercedes? Look at, for example, what happened in San Bernardino. They said, John Podesta said, well, I wish his name wasn't Saeed Farouk. I wish it was Chris Hayes. And then Tony Podesta, his brother, chairman of Hillary's campaign, notified of an Islamic attack at a Somalian restaurant in January, 14 killed, and his reply was, oh, I had lobster there. And I'm thinking, imagine if Trump had done any of those things. And this is one of thousands that we're finding.
It would have been political suicide if there would have been emails exposed like that. What disturbs me is that it's all about politics. It's all about what it is, turning a terrorist attack, a tragedy on our homeland, into how do you best politically capitalize on the situation. And then furthermore, it goes into the division into ethnicity, into gender, the anti-Catholic bigotry, going after the needy Latinos. It goes on and on. And so what they're trying to do is that the Democrats and the Clinton campaign, they have talked about branding Republicans as extremists, as racist, and trying to see if they can take the party down, while they themselves are dividing us all up into these categories.
You know, Charlie, on November 9th, win, lose, or draw, there is going to be on this program an analysis of how deeply entrenched and corrupt and abusively biased the news media is, as revelations from WikiLeaks proves. But I want to point out one specific thing, how in 2015 in an email chain with Clinton staffers, they were bragging about, well, let's release a speech to the friends in the media to show that Clinton's speeches to all those fat cats were really nothing to worry about. Cherry pick it, release it, plausible deniability, manipulate the media to do what they want, the very people that are in their pocket. What do you think of that propaganda technique of theirs that was revealed?
Well, obviously, it's working. It works very well with them. But, and obviously this is something that you've talked about for years and years, about the absolute corruption in the media in terms of the way they deal with Republicans versus Democrats. And in particular with the Clintons are so abusive of the media, and the media still treats them like this, which is kind of amazing. But, I really do think that one of the things that will happen at the conclusion of this race is that it won't just be people like you or me or Mercy talking about the corrupt media. I think that the public, because even the public that the people who are going to be voting for Clinton, they're realizing that, I'm going to vote for her, but man, she's a liar. And I mean, even John Podesta admits that she has trouble with the truth.
Funny,
so I think this is a breakthrough moment where people, I think it's the end of the media as we know.
All right, exit question: who's going to win this race, Mercedes?
Oh, come on, Sean. That's unfair. It's going to be tight till the very end. If he can close it down to two points, it'll be interesting.
With a little dose of hope, I'll say Donald Trump.
All right, when we come back, we need your help. An important question of the day. We want your thoughts on that question and more. Straight ahead. All right, time for our question of the day. So with 18 days to go, how do you feel about the upcoming election? Who do you think is going to win? We want to hear